What if one of the most advanced flying machines ever built by the United States, a drone worth more than $200 million, packed with classified sensors and cutting-edge surveillance technology, could be tracked, targeted, and destroyed by a system many in the West once dismissed as outdated or overrated? What if the balance of power in the skies could shift in a single night, not because of a massive war, but because of a silent radar ping and a calculated decision made in a command room thousands of miles from Washington? And what if that moment sent shockwaves through every military planner, intelligence agency, and defense contractor on Earth, forcing them to rethink how vulnerable modern warfare really is? Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are breaking down one of the most consequential and quietly explosive military encounters of the 21st century, how Iran shot down a $200 million US drone using its domestically produced third Cordad air defense system. This was not just a drone loss. It was a message, a signal, a turning point that exposed uncomfortable truths about technology, power, and the future of warfare. Picture the scene. High above the region, cruising at extreme altitude, a US RQ-4 Global Hawk surveillance drone moves silently through the sky. This aircraft is not armed, but it is far from harmless. It is one of the most sophisticated intelligence gathering platforms ever created, capable of monitoring vast areas, intercepting signals, tracking troop movements, and feeding real-time data directly to US commanders. Every hour it stays airborne, it collects information worth millions. Every mission is designed to be untouchable, flying higher than most air defense systems were ever meant to reach. Or so the assumption went, but somewhere below, Iranian radar operators are watching, and this is where the story begins to twist. For years, Iran had been preparing for a scenario exactly like this, facing decades of sanctions, limited access to Western technology, and constant pressure from US military presence in the region. Iranian defense planners knew they could never match American power plane for plane or ship for ship. Instead, they focused on asymmetric warfare. The goal was simple but ambitious: make the cost of operating near Iran so high and the risks so unpredictable that even a superpower would have to think twice. This philosophy shaped everything Iran built: missiles instead of aircraft carriers, drones instead of stealth bombers, and layered air defenses designed not just to shoot down targets, but to psychologically deter future operations. The third Cordad system sits at the heart of that strategy. Developed by Iran's aerospace and defense industries, the third Cordad is a mobile, medium-range surface-to-air missile system. On paper, it doesn't look revolutionary, but appearances are deceptive. The system integrates phased array radar, electro-optical tracking, and command and control networks that allow it to operate independently or as part of a broader air defense web. Its missiles are designed to engage high-altitude, high-speed targets, including drones and aircraft that rely on stealth or electronic warfare to survive. Here's the first critical loop to keep in mind: the Global Hawk was not supposed to be vulnerable. Yet Iran had spent years studying US flight patterns, drone behavior, and sensor profiles. Every mission flown near Iranian airspace was a data point. Every radar contact, every signal emission, every electronic signature was analyzed. This was a slow hunt, not a spontaneous act. As tensions escalated in the region, US drones increased their presence. Surveillance flights became more frequent. The information they gathered was invaluable, but the message they sent was just as important: we are watching you. For Iran, this constant observation was both a threat and an opportunity. Now here's where the stakes rise sharply. In the early hours of that fateful day, Iranian air defense units detected what they believed was a violation of their airspace. The United States would later dispute this, claiming the drone was operating in international airspace. But from Iran's perspective, the decision was already framed. This was not just a drone. It was a symbol of U.S. dominance hovering over their territory. The command decision to engage was monumental. Shooting down a U.S. military asset risked retaliation, escalation, even war. But allowing it to pass unchallenged sent a different message that Iran's red lines could be crossed without consequence. So the order was given. The third Cordad system locked on. This is the moment that should make every viewer pause, because what happened next shattered assumptions across the defense world. The system's radar tracked the drone at high altitude. Its fire control systems calculated the intercept, and within seconds, a missile was launched, climbing rapidly into the sky. The global hawk never saw it coming. When the missile struck, the impact was decisive. The drone was destroyed, crashing into the waters below. A $200 million asset was gone in an instant. But the real damage wasn't financial, it was strategic. Here's the next loop. If Iran could do this once, it could do it again. The implications rippled outward immediately. In Washington, decision makers were forced into crisis mode. Military commanders assessed options. Retaliatory strikes were reportedly considered, then called off at the last minute. The risk of escalation was too high. The message from Tehran was clear: advanced American systems were not invincible. For the average viewer, this might sound like just another military incident, but for defense analysts, it was a warning shot across the future of aerial warfare. Let's talk about why this mattered so much. The RQ-4 Global Hawk represents a philosophy of warfare built on dominance through information. Fly higher than anyone else, see everything, be untouchable. The third Cordad incident proved that this philosophy has limits. Technology evolves, defenders adapt, and the sky is no longer a sanctuary. Iran's success wasn't about having better technology than the United States. It was about using what they had intelligently, patiently, and with strategic intent. The third Cordad didn't operate in isolation. It was part of a network. Radar data was shared. Operators were trained for this exact scenario. Engagement rules were clear. Another suspense loop to consider: how many other systems around the world have quietly reached similar capabilities? Countries that cannot afford fifth-generation fighters or billion-dollar defense programs are watching closely. If a relatively affordable mobile air defense system can deny airspace to even the most advanced drones, the balance of power shifts. Suddenly, air superiority is no longer guaranteed. It has to be earned every time. Emotionally, this incident also changed the psychological dynamic between Iran and the United States. For decades, the U.S. military operated with near impunity in many regions. This event introduced uncertainty, and uncertainty is a powerful deterrent. Now let's pull back and look at the human side of this moment. Inside the Iranian command structure, this was seen as a validation of years of effort under pressure. Engineers, operators, and planners who had worked with limited resources proved they could stand toe to toe with a global superpower. For the Iranian public, it became a moment of national pride, heavily publicized as proof of technological independence. On the other side, U.S. personnel faced hard questions. How was the drone tracked? Were its countermeasures insufficient? What intelligence gaps existed? Could other platforms be at risk? These questions didn't just affect drone operations. They forced a reevaluation of broader strategies. Here's another loop to keep you watching. This was not the end of the story. It was the beginning. Since that shootdown, air defense systems like the third Cordad have gained increased attention. Militaries worldwide are investing more in counter-drone technology, electronic warfare, and stealth countermeasures. At the same time, drone designs are evolving, pushing for higher survivability, autonomy, and redundancy. The cat and mouse game continues, but the core lesson remains. In modern warfare, cost does not equal invincibility. A $200 million platform can be neutralized by a fraction of that investment. if the defender understands the environment, the technology, and the psychology of their opponent. Think about the broader stakes. Surveillance drones are not just tools of war. They are instruments of policy. They shape decisions, influence negotiations, and define red lines. When one is shot down, it's not just metal falling from the sky. It's a statement that reverberates through diplomatic channels and military planning rooms alike. Another secondary hook. What happens the next time a drone crosses a contested airspace? Will commanders hesitate? Will rules of engagement change? Will the risk of escalation outweigh the value of the intelligence gained? These questions don't have easy answers. What makes the third Cordad incident so compelling is how quietly it happened. There was no massive battle, no extended exchange of fire, just a single missile, a single target, and a global reaction. And that should concern anyone paying attention, because the future of conflict may look less like large-scale wars and more like these precise, calculated moments where technology, timing, and decision-making intersect in ways that can reshape entire regions. Let's loop back to the system itself for a moment. The third Cordad's mobility is a key factor. Unlike fixed installations, it can be moved, concealed, and redeployed. This makes it harder to target preemptively. It also complicates planning for any adversary. You don't know exactly where it is, only that it could be watching. Combine that with Iran's emphasis on layered defense, and you begin to see the bigger picture. Drones, missiles, radar, electronic warfare, all working together. The shootdown was not an isolated capability. It was a demonstration of an integrated approach. Another emotional connection point. Imagine being an operator in that control room, years of training, endless drills. And then the moment comes when theory becomes reality. One decision, one launch, and history changes. For the drone operators on the US side, the experience is equally stark, watching a live feed cut out, losing contact, realizing the platform is gone. These are human experiences behind the headlines. As viewers, it's easy to focus on hardware and numbers, but warfare is ultimately about people, choices, and consequences. The aftermath of the shootdown saw intense diplomatic activity. Statements were issued, narratives clashed. Each side framed the incident to support its strategic goals. But beneath the rhetoric, one fact was undeniable: the rules had shifted. And here's another loop to hold onto: this incident likely prevented future conflicts as much as it risked one. Deterrence works when both sides understand the costs. By demonstrating capability and resolve, Iran altered the calculus. The US, in turn, had to reconsider how, where, and when it deploys high-value assets. This is the paradox of military power. Sometimes the most powerful move is not escalation, but restraint informed by new realities. As technology continues to spread, more actors will gain access to systems once reserved for major powers. The barrier to entry is lowering, innovation is accelerating, and incidents like this become case studies for militaries around the world. So what should we take away from all of this? First, never underestimate an adversary's ability to adapt. Second, understand that modern warfare is as much about perception and psychology as it is about firepower. And third, recognize that the sky is no longer a safe haven by default. The third Cordad system didn't just shoot down a drone. It challenged assumptions that had gone untested for too long. As we move forward, expect to see more emphasis on survivability, deception, and resilience. Expect drones to become smarter, more autonomous, and harder to detect. And expect air defense systems to evolve right alongside them. The chessboard is getting more complex, and that's why staying informed matters. Because the next incident might not involve a drone. It could involve satellites, cyber systems, or something entirely new. But the pattern will be familiar: a moment that seems small on the surface, yet carries enormous strategic weight. This is why we break these events down, not to glorify conflict, but to understand it. To see the signals beneath the noise and to recognize how close the world often comes to decisions that could change everything. If there's one final suspenseful thought to leave you with, it's this: how many similar systems are already in place around the world, waiting for the moment when theory meets reality. And when that moment comes, will we be ready for the consequences? Stay sharp, stay curious, and stay alert for the latest developments, because in modern warfare, the next turning point is always closer than it appears.